Welcome back, spirits and specters, to another broadcast from the heart of the darkness. This is Gloomwood Radio, your weekly dose of the unexplained. I'm your host, and I'm here to guide you through the shadows. Before we descend into tonight's tale, a quick reminder. If you enjoy these journeys into the unknown, please take a moment to hit that like button, share this broadcast with a fellow night owl, and be sure to subscribe so you never miss a story. And if you feel extra generous, a super thanks goes a long way in keeping these airwaves haunted. All right, let's get to it. Tonight's story comes to us all the way from a listener in Thailand. It's a chilling reminder that in the modern world, sometimes the technology we rely on the most can lead us to the most ancient and terrifying of places. This isn't just a story about getting lost. It's about being led astray. This is the experience of a man named Arun, a professional driver, as told to our listener who submitted the story. Let's begin. Arun was the kind of driver who would take any job. Day or night, short trip or a cross-country haul. If the pay was right, he was on the road. One evening, around 8 p.m., he got a call for an urgent job. He needed to drive 2 passengers from the city deep into the rural provinces of northeastern Thailand. It was a long drive, several hours at least, but it was an emergency, and the pay was excellent. So he packed a small bag and went to pick them up. The journey started off normally. The hum of the engine, the endless stretch of highway. By the time they left the main roads and started heading into the specific province, it was well past midnight, maybe 1 or 2 a.m. The roads became narrower, winding through the dark countryside. Arun glanced in the rearview mirror. His 2 passengers were fast asleep, exhausted from the long trip. He was relying completely on his GPS, his trusted guide. But then it led him somewhere strange. The robotic voice directed him to a stop right in front of the entrance to a local temple, or a wat as they call it in Thailand. The place was pitch black, silent, and imposing. Arun hesitated. This didn't seem right. Was this the destination? He decided to wake his passengers. "Excuse me," he said, gently shaking one of them. "The GPS has brought us here. Is this correct?" The man woke up, looked around, and nodded. "Oh yes, this is the right way. The village we're going to, you have to drive through the temple grounds to get there. Our village is the last one on the road." Relieved, Arun put the car in drive and rolled slowly through the temple gates. The atmosphere was heavy. In the deep darkness of rural Thailand, a temple at night isn't a place of peace, it's eerie. He could just make out the dark silhouettes of an old chapel, a large crematorium, and rows of memorial stupas. It was unnerving, but he pushed on. He drove through the temple, exited the other side, onto a small road, past one small sleeping village, and finally arrived at the destination in the next village over. It was now 3 a.m. As he pulled up to the house, he noticed decorative lights strung up, which he thought was odd for this time of night. Maybe there was a celebration. The passengers got out, saw how tired he looked, and offered him a place to rest. "You drove all this way," one of them said. "Why don't you come inside, wash up and get some sleep? You can drive back in the morning." Arun was considering it. He was exhausted. He just wanted to use the bathroom and splash some water on his face. As he walked with the men towards the house, the reason for the late-night gathering became horribly clear. It wasn't a party. It was a funeral. In many parts of rural Thailand, funerals are held at the family home. The deceased is kept in the house, and family and friends gather there for several days. Arun felt a chill run down his spine. The men had brought him to their relative's funeral. Who would want to sleep in a stranger's house during a wake? It wasn't his family, not his friend. He suddenly felt like an intruder. He politely asked to use the bathroom, quickly washed his face, and made his excuses. He had to leave. Now.
It was a little past 3 a.m. when Arun got back in his car. The drive-in was unsettling enough with 3 people in the car. The drive out, alone, felt 10 times worse. The thought of driving back through that dark, silent temple with its crematorium was filling him with a quiet dread. He started the car and programmed the GPS for home. He had only been driving for a few minutes when his phone screen lit up with a familiar notification. A faster route is now available. Save 30 minutes. 30 minutes? That was a lot of time. Arun zoomed out on the map. He saw the new route would take him on a completely different set of roads. And more importantly, it completely bypassed the temple. It was a no-brainer. He was tired, he was spooked, and he wanted to be on a main road as fast as possible. He tapped the screen. Accept. The GPS guided him onto a new path. The roads were dark and empty, just his headlights cutting through the blackness. He drove on, trusting the device. But soon the paved road began to narrow. Then it turned into gravel track. Then the gravel gave way to bumpy, red dirt. Before he knew it, he was no longer on a road at all. He was driving through what looked like a rubber tree plantation, the trees standing like silent soldiers in the dark on either side of him. He looked at his GPS. It was still telling him to go straight. But where was he going? A knot of anxiety tightened in his stomach. Then the worst possible thing happened. He drove into a dead zone. The phone signal vanished. The map on his screen froze. The little blue dot that was his car was now stranded in a sea of green with no route forward. He was lost, utterly and completely lost. His first thought was to call the client he had just dropped off, but of course, with no signal, he couldn't call anyone. He had no choice but to keep driving, hoping to find a signal or a way out. He followed the dirt track, which now seemed to be looping back on itself. He felt like a mouse in a maze. As he navigated a turn, he was suddenly jolted. Bang! He had hit something. He didn't see what it was. In his panic, he didn't dare stop to check. He just kept going, his heart hammering against his ribs. He drove and drove until he realized, with a sinking feeling of dread, he was back in the exact same spot. The loop was real. He stopped the car, the engine idling. His headlights cut a path through the darkness ahead. He saw some kind of wreckage on the side of the track. Curious and scared, he flipped on his high beams. The bright light revealed a shattered mess of wood. It was what he had hit, and he knew instantly what it was. It was the remains of a spirit house. Now, for those of you listening who may not know, in Thailand, you'll see these small, ornate structures that look like miniature temples or houses on platforms. They're called San Prapum. They're built as a dwelling for the protective spirits of the land. People leave offerings, food, drinks, flowers to keep these spirits happy and to ensure good fortune. To damage one, let alone destroy one, is considered catastrophically bad luck. Arun stared at the wreckage, a cold dread washing over him. And in that moment of horror, it got worse. The engine died. Just like that. The car went silent. The headlights flickered once, then went out, plunging him into near total darkness. As his eyes adjusted, he saw movement. From the shadows behind the broken spirit house, a dark shape began to crawl out onto the path. At first, he thought it was a dog, but it moved strangely, unnaturally,
and just as it cleared the shadows, the car's remaining power failed completely. Total darkness. Total silence. Aaron froze. He couldn't see what it was, but he knew something was out there. He held his breath, making himself as small as possible in the driver's seat. Then he heard it.
The sound of footsteps on the dry grass and leaves. Slow, deliberate, circling the car, first on the right side, then behind him, then to the left. Was it a thief? An animal? Or was it the thing he saw crawling from the shrine? He didn't know, and he was too terrified to find out. He sat there, silent, for what felt like an eternity. The footsteps continued their slow, predatory patrol, and then they stopped. The silence that followed was somehow even more terrifying. Just as he was about to lose his mind, a light flickered in the darkness. It was his phone. The GPS had, for some impossible reason, sprung back to life. A calm, robotic voice cut through the silence. "Turn around. Turn around." That voice, that simple command, broke him out of his trance. It was like a lifeline. He gripped the steering wheel, turned the key, and prayed. Come on, come on. He tried once, nothing. Twice, nothing. On the third try, the engine roared back to life. He slammed the gear into reverse. As he did, the car's rear parking sensors started screaming. The beeping was frantic, indicating something was directly behind him. He glanced at his backup camera display. What he saw on the grainy screen made his blood run cold. It was a pair of legs. They looked like the legs of a woman, but they were dark, almost black, and they were just standing there, motionless, right behind his car. This was not a person. He knew it. Without a second thought, he stomped on the accelerator. He braced for impact, but there was none. He drove straight through where the legs had been. There was no bump, no sound. It was like reversing through smoke. The GPS told him to turn around, and a clear blue line now showed a path out of the plantation. He followed it without question. As he sped out of the trees and back onto a dirt road, he kept seeing it out of the corner of his eye, a tall, dark shadow standing among the trees by the roadside. He saw it once, then again 100 meters later, and again. It was as if it was following him, watching him leave. He didn't dare slow down. He just kept his eyes fixed on the road ahead, his heart pounding a frantic rhythm. After a few minutes, he saw a light up ahead. It was a small, open-sided shelter by the road, a salah, used as a bus stop or a resting place. And inside, he saw two people, an old man and an old woman, sitting together quietly. He pulled over, his hands shaking. He stumbled out of the car and told the elderly couple everything that had just happened. They listened patiently, their faces calm and kind. They didn't seem surprised, just offered him quiet reassurance. Arun was too terrified to continue driving. Dawn was only about an hour away. He decided to wait with the old couple in the shelter until the sun came up. He sat with them, talking, and eventually the exhaustion and the adrenaline crash took over. He fell asleep right there. He woke up with a start. The sun was up, the sky was bright, but he wasn't in a shelter. He was lying on a mound of earth, a grassy hillock. He looked around confused. He was next to a large sign that read, "Travel safely," marking the exit from the village onto the main road. He thought, where is the shelter? Where did the old couple go? He turned and looked to his right. And there it was. It wasn't a bus shelter. It was a large, ornate spirit house. Not the small kind for the land, but a santayai, a grandfather-grandmother shrine. A shrine for the ancestral spirits that watch over the entire village. He was sleeping at the foot of their shrine. Then, another memory surfaced. Right before he had managed to start his car back in the plantation, in that moment of pure terror, he'd heard a voice. It wasn't the GPS. It was the gruff, loud voice of an old man yelling in his ear, "Get out of here now!" It was then he understood. The elderly couple he met, the voice he heard, they were the spirits from the shrine, the very guardians of the village who had guided him out of danger. He realized that throughout his drive, whenever he passed a shrine, he had always offered a small, respectful why, the traditional Thai gesture of prayer. Perhaps that small act of respect had saved his life. Later that day, he called the client to tell him what happened. When he described the road the GPS had sent him down, the client was shocked. "What? No one ever uses that road. It's been abandoned for years. Why on earth would the GPS send you that way?" Haroon never got an answer. He never knew what malevolent force tried to trap him in that rubber plantation, or what exactly it was that he hit. But he knows one thing for sure. He was saved by the very spirits he had shown respect to, the grandfather and grandmother of the village, and he never blindly trusted a GPS again. A chilling tale of technology versus tradition, of being lost and being found. A huge thank you to our listener for sending that in. It makes you wonder what unseen forces are at play just off the main road, doesn't it? That's all the time we have for tonight on Gloomwood Radio. Until we meet again, keep your lights on. And don't forget, if you enjoyed the story, show your support. Hit like, share it with your friends, subscribe for more, and consider a super thanks. It means the world to us here in the dark. Good night.